Don Johnson turned the house's rules against them, walking into Atlantic City's most exclusive casinos and then walking out with $15 million. Let's see how he outsmarted the system that was designed to make you lose. The beginning. Don Johnson was born on May the 10th of 1962 in Salem, Oregon. He was introduced to gambling at a very early age, and being surrounded by so many gambling activities, he knew that it was his calling, and so he worked in various capacities in the betting and gambling world. He began by learning everything he could about horse racing and was a jockey at some point in his career, but around the age of 30 he would be hired to manage the Philadelphia Park, a place formerly used as a racetrack before being rebuilt and renamed as the Park's Casino. He managed several establishments simultaneously and even served as a state regulator in the state with major racetracks like Texas, Oregon, Wyoming, and Idaho. He founded the Heritage Development Company, an establishment that used computer-assisted wagering programs for betting on horse racing, and at the same time dedicated some time to horse racing himself, also having a secret obsession with the game of blackjack. He played as often as possible and quickly became significantly good at the game. He first learned how to play because most of his partners loved to indulge in the games as often as they could, but over time he actually developed a fixation for the game, deciding to explore opportunities in the world of blackjack. This is where the story of the legend truly began. Every gambler has that one story, the time they beat the odds and hit it big. Now it's your turn to create your story and become a main character in our future videos. Welcome to Crypto Rush, where luck meets opportunity in the world of crypto gambling. Deposit crypto, play your favorite games, and cash out in seconds. Crypto Rush brings the joy and excitement of a casino to your fingertips. Click the first link in the description and start your winning streak today. Crypto Rush, where legends are made. Negotiations, time, and chance. In 2008, the global financial crisis was at an all-time high, and many casinos had to become flexible in order to entice players to spend more. This opportunity presented itself at just the right time, and that's where Johnson decided to take advantage. By 2010, the effects of the Great Recession were so high, casinos were trying to keep high rollers playing by offering them lucrative incentives like flexible rules, rebates on losses, and other offers that they couldn't refuse, as well as a lavish lifestyle. While the casinos were already giving great offers to gamblers, Johnson had looked beyond what they were giving. He understood that there was a very high amount of competition, and casinos were doing everything they could to keep the high rollers in, and for that reason, he would be able to tip the scales a bit more in his favor. He first began by approaching various casinos in Atlantic City with offers to see which ones would be flexible enough to accept his terms. He was well skilled in the art of negotiation and was able to convince a few casinos to take the deal. He had negotiated for 20% rebates on all losses, meaning that for every $1 million that he lost, the casino would refund him $200,000. The problem was, though, that he didn't really have that kind of money to lose. Part of his act was being able to take questionable risks that didn't make any sense, and he was able to do it because he was confident in his abilities at blackjack. The rebates would greatly reduce the risk and grant him the opportunity to win back money that was lost. Johnson had pushed the casinos to grant him higher betting limits, which would allow him to bet as high as $100,000 per hand. This was an insane offer, and very few gamblers had the nerve to ask for such a thing, but Johnson was looking at the bigger picture. He knew that bigger stakes came with bigger rewards, and if he was going to take the casinos for all that they were worth, he would have to do it with bigger sums of money. Interestingly, some casinos even saw it as a win-win, accepting the offer, and he also made sure that the blackjack tables allowed him to split and double down in ways that were beneficial. Johnson was asked in an interview how he was able to determine his boundaries of negotiation, and he simply replied, "When they start saying no to your offers after a series of yes, it means you've gotten to the limits of what is acceptable, so you can take it or leave it." Casinos that would accept his terms were unprepared for what would happen next, because they were setting the stage for a winning streak that would become one of the most brilliant plays in history. Winning streak at Tropicana. In January of 2011, Don Johnson arrived at the Tropicana and began a 12-hour blackjack marathon. He was tactful, employing skills of card counting and mathematical calculations. Using the split and double down method, he profited $800,000, eventually leading to a $1.2 million win. After a few grueling sessions, he then racked up an impressive $5.8 million from Tropicana. He initially did take a few losses, but thanks to his poise and gameplay, he was able to stay calm and place even larger bets while scoring scoring the big win. Tropicana was more interested in recouping their losses, so they allowed him to keep on playing and continued offering opportunities, hoping that sooner or later he would run out of luck. This would be quite the opposite, though. He was playing a game that was founded on skill and not luck, and eventually the casino had had enough. Even though the damage was already done, he was $5.8 million richer, but would be banned from ever coming back to the blackjack tables again. Borgata takes a beating. After Johnson's success at the Tropicana, he then decided to take that same strategy to Borgata, another casino that had agreed to his turn. He would spend the next 3 months playing a series of blackjack sessions, and the results were absolutely shocking. Johnson arrived at the casino in February of 2011 and went straight to business, taking his time to make sure that the offer was still valid and that he had gotten every advantage the casino had to offer. He then proceeded to bet in the most aggressive ways possible. As the game continued on, it caught the attention of other gamblers who thought that Johnson had to be using some kind of trick that they were unaware of. He wasn't using any kind of exceptional technique, though. He was simply able to apply card counting techniques because of his familiarity with the game and his sharpness in exploiting small loopholes like errors made by the dealers. Sometimes he would even arrive at the table with a slew of women who would put up an act that might get the card dealer distracted for a split second. The idea behind the trick: any mistake made in dealing of cards was to his advantage. He exploited every little tactic that was technically legal and regular for a casino. The games were high stakes, but not only that, he also played the highest stakes that were allowed for any high roller. This became a huge risk on both his part and the casino, but he had the 20% rebate to fall back on, and sometimes he would even play well beyond what he was able to afford, but luck would smile upon him. The Borgata would take a big hit, and Johnson scored $5 million from the blackjack tables after a series of sessions. Casino executives believed that he was just lucky at first, but as he continued to play on, the wins began to raise eyebrows, and they began to suspect foul play. After a review of his games, they were unable to find anything out of the ordinary. There were no signs of cheating, but how was it that he was so successful? The Borgata, like every other casino, had full rights to make any decisions they wanted at any time during or after the game, and it was their own little insurance policy in order to protect themselves from running out of business or stopping someone they thought might be using unknown methods to win. They decided to switch the rules in between games to try and limit Johnson and throw him off his game. Following up with unsavory restrictions, betting limits were being restricted, and rebates were stopped completely. It even got to the point where most everything that Johnson had negotiated for was removed. At that point, there was no need to continue the game without some form of security, and so Johnson stopped altogether. As expected, the executives at the casino were displeased with the loss and were suspicious at every turn, but made a good call by placing restrictions on the games. These decisions had saved the casino from losing even more to Johnson, and in total, he had won over $10 million from playing at just 2 casinos, but it wouldn't be over yet. He decided to try his luck at one more establishment. Making history at Caesars. Johnson arrived at Caesars in May of 2011 and, as usual, decided to party and socialize just a bit, making some friends at the blackjack tables who were also great players, but he didn't meet anyone he thought was a formidable opponent, and so he focused on enjoying his night. After getting the party out of his system, the next evening he then went into business. Caesars had yielded a few advantages, and Johnson was feeling quite lucky. He began to play, and as the games unfolded, things took a turn for the worse. Tensions were high at the table, and everyone around was on edge. At some point, the managers had to turn their attention to Johnson as things were getting a little out of hand. He was on a winning streak that had not been witnessed in quite a long time. Managers called for a few reviews and made changes to certain rules, but the result was always the same. His losses were minor, and his wins were major. Casinos, though designed as a place where dreams could come true and anyone could win big, actually were not fond of the idea of anyone winning, let alone on a consecutive basis. Johnson had won $4 million by the end of the evening, and normally the casino might offer a certain incentive to make him stay longer and play more games, with the hopes that he would eventually lose all of his money. The level of consistency in his wins was scary to the casino, and they didn't want to take any more chances, so they did what any responsible casino would would do in this situation and ban him from the blackjack tables. While this may seem unfair, it was a normal practice for casinos to make these decisions, not out of spite, mind you, but in order to protect the house. In total, Johnson had walked away with a whopping sum of $15 million in total winnings, an unprecedented amount in the gambling world. This event placed his name amongst the greats who have achieved great feats on the gambling scene, and games like blackjack typically gave the house an edge because it was quite flexible and the house could decide what policies to put into place at any time. High rollers would get a bit of special treatment like rebates, but in Johnson's case it was slightly different. He had used his masterful negotiation skills to create favorable terms for himself, proving that the house could be beaten with good negotiation, excellent card-playing skills, and a little bit of luck. What do you think about the skills and achievements of Don Johnson and how he beat the casinos? Let me know all about it in the comments down below. You should also subscribe to the channel so that you never miss another great video like this one in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.